Second segment, we're going to keep this a little short because the first one was a bit long. We're going to talk about a few fun facts about Australia. The article is also in the description. Feel free to read it yourself. First point is that the Australian outback is incredibly large. If you look at the map of Australia, the east coast is where most people live, and then past what's known as the Great Dividing Range to the west, the landscape gets a bit more deserty.
I think if you're looking for just infrastructure, jobs, places to go to meet friends and see people, then of course, yes, most of it's around the coast because that's the type of countries that we are and culture. But yeah, the outback, I mean, yeah, it's a huge landmass. But it could also mean that there's plenty of places for you to explore if you want to venture outside your suburb.
For those of you who are more adventurous, by all means, we're not going to tell you don't go. But if you are going to go, know that it is incredibly big and you really need to be prepared.
Yeah.
I remember, wasn't there at least 2 stories I've heard of in the last, this calendar year where, someone was lost hiking or bushwalking.
Oh, yeah, but that's just, that's hiking, but not prepared for our adverse weather from time to time.
Yeah.
Which is different, I guess, from getting lost in the outback.
Yeah. And these are locals as well, not international students.
So I think the good thing is for me, if you do want to venture out there into the outback, especially if you're first time, there's actually plenty of guides and tours that you can go, so that you don't have to literally be the explorer and go to somewhere for the first time. And if you do go to kind of national parks and wildlife sanctuaries, that we've actually been very lucky that there's a lot of infrastructure put in place where there's bushwalks, there's trails. You just have to follow the footpath and it'll get you there. It's when you venture into the really rural areas that's when you might come into trouble, but that really takes a very specific type of people to explore.
If you look at the size of Australia, which is, I think it's like 70% of the size of the United States, because I know New South Wales alone, the state that we're in, New South Wales alone is like France and Germany combined, plus more. So the outback, if you look at most of Western Australia, Northern Territory, half of South Australia, and bits of Queensland, New South Wales and Victoria, it's really big. That area that's mostly desert, it's quite large. So worth exploring if you're really adventurous. But if you're not, go in a group.
But then, look, I think there's a healthy medium here as well. I think it does saddens me when I do hear international students who've been here for 1 or 2 years and they haven't actually gone outside of Sydney.
Yeah.
Right, so we'll ask, have you been to Newcastle or Wollongong, which is kind of like the second and the third largest city within New South Wales.
Yeah.
They're only 3 hours drive or less, depending on which mode of transport you use. And to not have the opportunity or the reason to go there seems like a missed opportunity to us. So, maybe in future we can organize, tour groups or volunteering activities around there for people to explore
We've
it
talked about this a lot.
safe and group-based manner. But I think at the very least, you have term breaks, you have long weekends, use it. It's quite easy in Sydney to do a day trips in and out of the metro area. Then at least you get a feel of what Australia could be like outside of, let's say, Burwood. I mean, that's not really truly representative of Australia.
No.
But you kind of don't know if you don't go. So.
And also, for what it's worth, there is, this is, I guess, based on my own experiences, because my parents have driven me up and down the coast quite a lot. Even if you don't go that far out, if you just go out of some of the towns and you just camp out somewhere, you just camp out for the night. Being in the wilderness, in a way, has a very different vibe to it. And it's the sort of thing that when you go home and you tell your family and they ask, oh, what have you been doing? You can tell them, it's this. And you get to see the night sky and there's no clouds, there's no smog. It's just you and the landscape, and it's a whole thing.
Sorry, you sound like the expert, but I'm the one who actually spends more time in the landscape. But
Sure.
I'll say this one more thing, which is, for those who are living in Sydney, it is relatively simple for you to make a one-day trip out to some of these places, because there are a lot of things to do north of, west of, and south of Sydney. Do take advantage of it on a weekend that you have spare with good weather. You just can't beat it. And even though the air quality is already really good compared to a lot of overseas country. When you go outside of the city, it's another level. You just have to kind of experience it for yourself.
Yeah. And as a side note, there's quite a few caves around New South Wales, around Victoria, and I've been to a few outside of Australia. There's very little infrastructure sometimes, but in Australia they really look after it. Granted, you have to pay a small fee for it, but you get a lot of lights everywhere. You get to see everything. You get a tour guide. They make it really safe. So well worth checking out as well. If you don't want the open air, you can also go underground. Next one. The Aboriginal Australians are the oldest continuous culture on Earth with an estimated 60,000 year history. This is a big topic, and we're not going to unpack it right now, but it's very interesting to hear because I think while there is some writing and cave sketches and things like that, a lot of it does tend to be word of mouth and sort of passed down generationally, which means then, unfortunately, from the perspective of outsiders, if you look 200 years ago, the British colonialists, they don't necessarily see that as particularly significant. But if you broaden your view a little, you know that there's a lot of traditions, a lot of history, a lot of culture that is passed down verbally through families from parent to child and so on. That isn't necessarily written in official records, in official history. So I think that's something that's well worth exploring. I don't know how much opportunity we have to explore, but it would certainly be interesting.
Yeah, and again, we're not claiming to be an expert in any shape or form, but having grew up here, it's even for us, it's still we've barely scratched the surface of the indigenous culture, and I know quite a lot of Aboriginal people or people from Aboriginal descent. Every time I talk to someone new, it's another story that you learn, and that's really how they pass on their history and culture to other people, and try to bring more people into their circle. So I think again, if you go to the last point about exploration, there's definitely sites within Sydney or just outside across different areas of New South Wales where you can visit that has a rich Indigenous cultural element. And then for specific dates, again, hopefully at your universities or education institutions, there will be events where they're like, oh, it's Reconciliation Week, or it's Australia Day. What does that mean for, I guess, Australian post-colonization and kind of beforehand, I think as the beauty of us being first-generation migrants and yourselves as an international student is that you are a third party. You don't really have a particular view one way or another. So that's actually a great position to be, to understand both sides of the story and really appreciate, the past and the current, and hopefully look at the future as well.
Often people hear about whether it's Reconciliation Week or a lot of these events, there tends to be an element of controversy. Or, some people don't like it because of whatever reason, they can't accept this or that. But if you just look at it from the perspective of, in particular, the mythology around the Dreamtime, which is what they understand of their history. And I remember when I was young, my parents had an art book by, I forgot the name of the artist, but he drew a lot of these stories. So that had a lasting impact on me, because when you look at the drawings, it actually provides a visualization of what that could have been like. Once in a while I think back to that and I think, wow, there's a lot there that a lot of people, even born in Australia, don't even know about. And in a positive sense, it's very interesting, and I think it should be explored further. And as an international student, just treat it as stories. It's the Marvel movies of 60,000 years ago.
Sure.
Next one. There are more than 12,000 beaches in Australia. I'm not here to antagonize anyone, especially in Europe, but recently I went to a, shall we say, southern European country, who shall not be named, and they had an advertisement for, quote unquote, a sandy beach. And me, having grown up in Australia, I know what a sandy beach looks like. I don't necessarily go to all the beaches, or any of them, but that's me, right? I know it's there. I don't know what that looks like. And I went to this beach, and it was pebbles. It hurt. Under your feet. It was hot. There's no sand inside. I was very disappointed. Ironically, it took me going to the other side of the world to appreciate the beaches here. So...
Yeah, I just heard you having a whinge. But
yes, I am having a whinge. Absolutely.
I think we are incredibly lucky here. And I think the fact that we have a relatively low population for the masses of land that we've got also meant that most of the natural real estate is left untouched. The beaches are sought after location everywhere, even with 12,000. Most of us want to live, on waterfront or do walks there. So, I just don't think there's anywhere better on, maybe a not too hot summer's day to go to the beach and spend a day there. We'll talk about sun care and sun protection, I'm sure, at a later time. But beaches are what we're known for, followed by parks and culture and whatnot. So that's, I don't want to sound like a holiday brochure, but if you haven't made time to do it and you're arriving literally now, start planning. October, November is a perfect season to go to the beach, and then summer depends on...
Yeah. Even though it's a little on the cooler side, because we're in the southern hemisphere and now it's technically the end of winter, beginning of spring. But going to the beach is still really nice. And the UV isn't as bad now compared to in 3 months' time.
Yeah. And I also think what people might not notice is there are a variety of beaches.
Yeah.
Like the beaches on the east coast are different from the west completely. And then there's beaches where it's more pebble-like, and there are ones with finer sand. There's one with wider, kind of more surfer-oriented waves. Let's say if you had a bad experience at one, don't rule out the other 11,999 beaches. Right, go and explore a few more. Go to the ones near you where you are. Go to ones outside of Sydney. There are actually a handful of really famous or tourist-friendly beaches in Australia, like Bondi,
Manly, Coogee, Cronulla, etc.
Correct. So those are there because they are photogenic, but there are some small beaches which I personally enjoy more because you don't have 4,000 people all standing around taking photos of the beach. You can actually sit down, have a picnic, or have a beer, and just appreciate what that looks like.
Absolutely, absolutely. Sometimes if you go up and down the coast, you'll just find a beach, and there's no one there.
Yep.
It's not that it's far. It's just not next to a town.
Yep.
And as a result, you can just go there. Be careful, right?
Swimming is different.
Swimming and going, that's a whole other thing. Please, if you're going to swim, be careful. Go, between the flags, etc., etc. But for the most part, yeah, it's just a nice. It's almost like a park. And sometimes, if you're really lucky, you'll find a beach with no one, but there's some trees close to the beach with some tables that's undercover. And that's, once you find that, you'll know this is the one that I'm coming back to every 3-6 months, right? Yes.
Going to the beach and swimming are two different things. And I know a lot of international students haven't even learned how to swim until they got here.
Yeah.
So we'll cover that another time, but it's a whole topic, and I think I just want people to be aware of, respecting nature and also enjoying to its full potential.
Australian coffee culture comes from all over the world. And I think this was going back to something that you said last episode about the waves of migration. After World War II, you had the Italians, Greeks, Croatians. I think in the 90s or in the late 80s, there were a few wars in that sort of Lebanon, Israel area. So you had a lot of Lebanese. More recently, I think.
Well, you had Vietnamese before that.
Yes, in the 1960s, 70s. There's also Turkish coffee, but also depending on where you are, the coffee culture can sort of be can emphasize more on based on who's running those coffee shops. Yeah. I know that because I used to work with someone who was Croatian. He mentioned that there's a big Croatian community at the time. This was like 15 years ago in Fremantle, in Western Australia. I haven't verified, but that's what he said. A lot of coffee there, but here, depending on which suburb you go to, it could be more sort of Italian style or Greek style or Turkish style.
Yeah, I think I'm a bit of a self-proclaimed coffee snob or appreciator.
Yeah.
I like my good coffee. So I think we've got a rich enough coffee culture to say that there is an Australian coffee culture now.
Yes.
It's just been evolving through the last couple of decades because of migrants and different people bringing their flavor to it. So now it always becomes the other way, that there is a standard Australian coffee, and then you can go to pockets of communities where you have a Vietnamese coffee or Italian coffee or whatever it may be. So I think if you enjoy coffee, you're in the right place. So if you ever get the opportunity to go to Melbourne, definitely go check out the coffee scene. But that's not to say that New South Wales doesn't have coffee scene. You just kind of have to find it. So again, I still explore new coffee places all the time. When you are going to a new area, you're like, oh, I feel like a coffee in the afternoon. Oh, let's go to Google Map and see who's 4.8 stars or above and all that stuff, right? One thing I have to say is, in recent trends though, a lot of coffee shops don't open till very late anymore. Like some are literally packing up shop at 2 p.m.
Yeah.
Which makes it really hard to enjoy an afternoon coffee.
Whereas if you go to Southern Europe, like Italy and Spain,
afternoon, evening.
Yeah, you go to Vietnam as well.
Yeah.
They might open at 10 in the morning, but they won't close until midnight. Right? Yeah. And people are still drinking coffee.
Which is probably more aligned to international student schedules. Right. Probably. But yes, most of the best cafes open at 6 a.m. or so. I've got a friend who runs a shop for the last 40 years, and he will literally go into the shop at 4 a.m. to tune the machinery.
Wow.
To the weather and humidity, so that it'll be ready to go by 6. But they close shop at 2. They've done the 8 or 10 hour day, so that's a different thing. So if you want to learn about these things properly, I would suggest you find a roastery and go there and have a look, because most of the roasteries have been turned into more retail space for people to understand the coffee culture better. But if you just want to drink coffee, then go to some popular shops and go from there.
Lastly, New Zealand is technically a part of Australia.
Not controversial.
Now, if you look, don't at me. If you look at the article, I don't have it with me, but if you look at the article, I have quoted part of the Australian Constitution, because I looked it up a number of years ago and I thought, oh, that's kind of funny. But no, it's true. In the Constitution, it says Australia is made up of these states, and it includes New Zealand. And as I understand it, the original history was that before it was formed, it was federated, there was supposed to be a meeting. And there was supposed to be a meeting in Australia, and they had said, look, it's these states, and one of them was New Zealand. And the New Zealand people just didn't show up. And so afterwards, they just kind of were like, well, we're here, so let's just do this thing. And then New Zealand was just kind of off to do their own thing. It's very, there is a certain non-seriousness to this, which is kind of like, do we want to fight over it? We're not even sorted out here. Whatever, they just do their own thing. But the irony is we're very close in a lot of ways.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to get into the whole, are they part of Australia legally thing.
They are.
I've been there quite a few times, and I can tell you, it feels like another state of Australia, based on the terrain, the road, especially the road signs. It's almost like they source it from the same manufacturer, right? It's green sides with white or yellow writing. If the driving style is exactly the same, they have the exact same types of models as well. So it does feel very much like home. At the same time, there are some differences, which are, I think the terrain's a lot more extremes.
Yeah.
So for us, other than Great Dividing Range, you have to go specifically to the snowy mountain to get that kind of height.
Yeah. Australia's pretty flat.
New Zealand could be like 20 k's and suddenly you got this mountain.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, this is interesting.
What?
And it's also the weather that is actually quite different as well. So most times it's actually the same, but the UV rating, how quickly you might get burned by the sun.
Actually, yeah, I think their UV's worse.
Much
than
higher,
us.
than us. So then,
Gotta be careful.
once you finish exploring Australia, then if you ever finish, but New Zealand is obviously a good alternative. It's the closest country outside of Australia to visit, especially if you're based in Sydney. We know quite a lot of people who go there as an overseas trip because they can. It's closer than Tasmania, by distance.
What?
Yeah. Yeah, don't quote me.
From where?
Sydney.
What? No.
It's 2.5 hour flight. Which is about the same as Tasmania. Anyway, look,
Okay, all right.
whatever it is, when you have the opportunity, go for it. But there is one thing though, accent is definitely different.
Yes.
And culture is also quite different, but I'll come back to that another time. I'd love to hear your feedback if you ever meet a Kiwi who it's a shorter way of us saying a New Zealander. But they certainly have a stronger accent for English, and I find it really strange and interesting at the same time when I first came here going, wow, they sound completely different. Is this even English? Well, it is. But
wow. Okay.
I haven't actually met I bumped into a Kiwi for a while, so.
Oh, okay.
But I do remember they do pronounce certain words in a very strange kind of way.
Yeah, yeah. I worked with someone who was from over there. Yeah, yeah. It's quite different. Quite different. But also worth noting that I think their indigenous people are different as well, and I think
That's what I meant.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And also politically, I think the Maori have their own party, and there's slight differences in terms of the constitution recognizing them, etc., etc. Look, I'm mostly joking around the whole it's the one place, but we're not that different. So why don't we just combine together?
Well, you can travel in between. So
Yes.
Australian passport holders can go to New Zealand without visa and vice versa. It's literally like crossing the border of a state border.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it's bound by sea. So
I don't know if they get like healthcare and stuff.
well,
like
you can
that.
stay here. I think again policy to be
Yeah,
updated,
yeah.
but they can work here indefinitely.
Yes. Yeah. I know someone who's in that sort of situation. Cool. All right. One day. We'll see. Anyway, that's episode 1 done, which is our second episode. Yes, it's an engineering joke. But thank you very much for your time, Vic.
Yeah, and thank you for being here. I think, it gives us an opportunity to share a bit of our history and a bit of our journey growing up. And these kind of first few episodes, which is more about Australia and the broader context, really kind of brings it out. Hopefully, it becomes more and more relatable to you as well.
Yeah. Anyway, let's wrap it up. Thank you very much.
See you next week.
Did you say next year?
Week. Sure.
All right.